want to welcome everyone. This is such a wonderful day. It's one of my favorite days of the school year, aside from graduation. This is one day where we really come together as a community in so many different ways, and the Hall of Fame brings part of the community back that we haven't seen for some time, and it's a real pleasure to see faces that started things at this high school that some of us don't even know about. I just heard about some of the senior pranks that used to happen on the patio there, and they're quite funny. Thank God they don't happen anymore. But it's my pleasure to just welcome you and give you a little background on what this is about. We are not just an athletic Hall of Fame. This is not just for athletes. We have an assortment and a range of different reasons why we induct past students, alumni. Some are professional reasons, some are college accolades, some are community and service-based reasons, and some are athletic. So just want to make sure everybody's clear that, it's really what you've contributed to the world, to the community, to, our school, and just the place you've made for yourself in life and the example that you've set. You really are role models, and we try to get students out to this event because we want them to see where our students have gone, what they've become, and who they are today. I do have to take a few moments to recognize a bunch of people. First and foremost, Sue Bonnet, where are you? Sue Bonnet's in the back. This does not happen without Sue Bonnet. It didn't happen the first year without Sue Bonnet. She approached me, 7 years ago, 8 years ago with this idea when I was a vice principal, and I loved it, and I let her do it. And I think it was the best decision I probably ever made in my career. So Sue, thank you so much for everything you've done, all the communication you do. Sue puts together a really nice committee that consists of several staff members and even a few other alumni and past inductees. Those staff members, some of whom are here today. Mr. Pico, John Pico, is here, and he contributes quite a bit as well. Mr. Pico is sort of our historian for the school, along with Mr. Fulton, who's also here, Mr. Douglas, who's a district member. Dan Olson is with us today, and he's on the committee as well. Dan, raise your hand real quick, in the back. And Gia Rosamilia, one of our phys ed teachers, is our resident photographer. Where are you, Gia? She's taken quite a few pictures. After the event, I think Sue posts some of these pictures to Facebook, and those are thanks to Gia for taking those. Some other inductees that we have here include Mr. Chuck Palak, a past inductee, also here for his tennis team being inducted. Mr. Stephen Gunderson, a past inductee who also came in from Ohio, and his mom is here as well, right? Thank you, Steve. Mr. Richie Klebitz is here, past coach for Parsippany Hills and phys ed teacher, also past inductee. And probably attending every year that we've had the Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. and Mrs. Schreiner, are here with us. And also attending just about every year we've had this induction is Mr. and Mrs. Ferris, who also contribute quite a bit to the side of the nominations that come in from to the committee. And without her, a lot of nominations wouldn't be possible. She's very supportive, and we really appreciate all that entire group. Thank you so much for everything you contribute. Also with us, a past teacher, Mr. Ronaldo Belletti. Say hello, wave your hand. Thank you for showing up. It's great to see past teachers show to this as well. And I'd like to say thank you to Ron Cupid, who I don't believe is in the room with us, and the custodians. Our patio looks beautiful. It doesn't look this great all year, but when the mums are in season, it just really shines. And they clean up really well. So I couldn't do my job without having such a great functioning school, and he keeps a lot of those things going. And Mr. Chris Ramsden, who takes care of all our sound and lighting needs. Without him, a lot of things don't work at Parsippany Hills either. So thank you to all those people for attending. Mayor Barberio, it's a pleasure to have you with us as well, and you'll say a few words in a few moments. That's pretty much the end of my welcome speech. I do want to take a moment of silence, though, because we have two past inductees who also are major contributors to where we are today with Parsippany Hills, Parsippany High, and education in general. Dr. Perlette and Dr. Calabria have devoted their life to education, and they passed not too long ago, and we are very saddened by their loss. So would you please join me in a quick moment of silence? Thank you. With that, we will take a 5-minute pause so everybody can grab something to eat. And as we go through the morning, feel free to just get up and get something to eat. Mr. Pico will be doing the inductees shortly after. So thank you, everyone, for attending this morning. Please help yourself to the side table.
As Mr. DeSanto said, one of the major purposes of this, besides honoring your accomplishments, is to give students at Parsippany Hills a sense of history of the school. Even though we're a relatively new school, just what students have done in the past, what are they accomplished now. And we have the plaques in that hallway near the gym because that's a spot where every student passes every day. Okay, and they can stop and they can look at it. If you come to a basketball game or a wrestling match or a volleyball game, during the intermissions, you'll see people out there all the time looking at those plaques. Back to school night, parents, many of them Parsippany Hills graduates, going back and looking at former classmates. Before we start calling up the inductees, I'd like to introduce Mayor Jamie Barbario, a Parsippany Hills graduate who wants to say a few words. Thank you, Jamie.
Well, first I'd like to thank, we still call him Mr. Pico because he was my teacher in high school. And I think he told me I was like one of the best students he ever had. Anyway. First of all, I'm honored to be here today, especially as the mayor, especially for some of the inductees and all inductees from the past and now. I grew up with it's Timmy Baxter, the Baxter family, the most wonderful family in Parsippany. You guys are great. Yeah, Kathy Smith, who I roamed the halls with in 1979. Now, who knew then they were going to be Hall of Famers? I would have got their autographs then, but I didn't get to. And my first girlfriend's here too, Marianne. Hello, how are you? And Sally Fitterer. And a lot of these teachers that are here today are, Mr. Klebitz, Mrs. Ferris, Mr. Belletti. They were here in high school when I was here, and it's really awesome to be back. Michelle Sylvan, who's my confidential aide, so if you ask her anything, she's not going to tell you nothing. But her son, Dr. Eric Sylvan, he's being inducted today. To all the inductees, from the bottom of my heart, as the mayor of Parsippany Troy Hills, that's why we have that slogan that says Pride in Parsippany, because it never stops. So I wish you the very best of luck now and in the future. God bless you, and thank you for having me.
Okay, Sue, if you can come up. We're going to do the inductees by years they graduated high school. Okay, it's just the easiest way for us to do it. Our first inductee is Scott Sheehy from the class of 1974. Scott was an outstanding cross-country and track athlete at Parsippany Hills High School. And some of his, well, first of all, let me mention that also Scott is a graduate of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. In cross-country in 1972, he was a first-team All-Area, All-County, and placed 4th place at the Morris County meet. He was 4th at the state sectional meet that year also. In winter track, in 880 yards before we went to meters. 1973, he was 1st place at the Group 4 indoor meet. 1974, he was also 2nd place in the state Group 3 meet, and a 4th place at a national meet that was held in Princeton University. In spring track, Scott is still the 880 record holder, and then when you transfer it to 800 meters, he still holds the record. Okay, and there's only, I think, 3 records left on the board that still exist from that era. 1973, he was 1st place at the state Section 2 meet and in Group 4. In 1974, he was 1st team All-Area, All-County. First place at the Morris County and Conference meets, second place at the state section Group 3 meet, and third place at the state Group 3 meet. At this point, I'd like Scott Shee to come up to the podium.
I'd just like to start off and thank everybody for the involvement in this, especially Mr. Prudenti. I suppose I could say Nick Prudenti now. Back in the high school days, it was always Mr. or Mrs. and Miss. It's a pretty awesome event. Obviously, I'm the oldest one being honored today, so it seems to be the older we get, the more we like to reminisce. I haven't been in the high school here now in probably 35 years, so it's very interesting to walk around and look at some of the plaques and pictures on the walls and think about my 4 years I spent here. I also know that I spent a lot of time running around these neighborhoods. 5 miles in the morning even before I came to school most of the time. Some of our meets were up at Mount Tabor Golf Course, so we would do 5 miles up there in the morning before we came to school, up and down those hills. Really worked hard at what I wanted to accomplish in my track days. Scholastically, I wasn't quite there with that, so this is strictly an athletic award here. And it's just really awesome. I'm enjoying it very much. It's good to see everybody, and thank you very much.
Our second inductee is Craig Zagorski. Craig is part of an athletic family who competed at Parsippany Hills, and his nephews also were outstanding athletes here. Craig went to Tulane University. In track, at one point or the other, he held the school record in the long jump, the triple jump, the high jump. His long jump and triple jump records still exist, and we haven't been close to them. He's a first team all conference and all area in the long jump. He was first place at the state section 2 group 3 meet. He was fourth place at the state group 3 championship meet. Back in that era, only the top 3 people went on to the meet of champions. Today, he would have been there and probably a place in that meet also. At this point, I'd like to introduce Craig Zagorski.
I'd like to thank everybody for this award, for the opportunity to come back to a period in time that really, if we think about it, all of us, very formative years, regardless of what we did here. Sue, I'd like to thank you for all of your hard work. Mike, special thanks to my track coach, Nick Prudenti, who fortunately, his long-term memory isn't quite that good and could only remember the good things because, trust me, there were more reasons for me not to be standing here than there are for me to be standing here. But, you know, that's part of being young. We make a lot of mistakes when we're young. But the great thing about growing is that we mature and we can correct our paths. And for the young people here, I'd like to mention, you know, we think we know a lot when we're young. And we do. We just don't know as much as we think we know. And we really need to give more credit to our parents, to our teachers, who have been so key in the development of our lives, to the people that we become. And usually within that 4-year period, we don't recognize that. It isn't until years later that we begin to reflect on it. So I would like to thank all of the teachers, all of the people who made sacrifices for everything they did, not for me, but for all the children who have passed through these halls. The parents. You know, I think about the challenges that young people face today. And I graduated in 1976. The world has become a very different place. And the challenges that young people face today are far greater. You know, they don't have the opportunities that we did necessarily to be children and to experience perhaps innocence. And so take the time as parents, as educators, to spend with your children, to give to them a period in your life that they will never have. I think my mother, my father, who could not be here, he died at an early age, the age of 58, just 6 months older than I am now. But it was their presence in my life at that point in time that got me through school. Like Scott said, you know, I was not an academic. Sports was really something that carried me through. It was something that I could relate to, that I could do well. And for all of those who perhaps fit into that group, individuals who perhaps excel at one thing, who can feel good about themselves, about that one thing, support that, be there for them. It's important, and that will carry through the balance of their lives. So I just want to thank everybody for this. It really is an honor. I'm the most surprised person in this room that I'm actually standing here. I cherish this, and again, thank you.
I'd like to invite Nick Brodenti to come up for a few minutes, since two of the inductees were former track members of his team. And if we can get Nick off his chair, we'll get him up here and do something like that.
Well, they sort of stole all my thunder. I was going to tell you about all the things that these two athletes have done, and the records they've set, and the accomplishments that they've had. They were outstanding athletes. I do have one story. I was in the gym coaching indoor track or winter track. And I had the shot put on the one end, doing pop-ups, and a couple of hurdles in the middle. And I had the high jump in the far corner. And I had a kid named Chris DeSimone, who was a legitimate 6-foot jumper. He won the state groups. So I had him in the corner doing pop-ups at 5'8". Pop-ups are just to get the athletes to stay away from the bar. Because the secret to the Fosbury flip, which just started at that time, was to stay away from the bar. And then you come down as your hips rise. So I'm doing this, and in comes Craig Zagorski. He's, I guess, at the end of the soccer season. He's running soccer for Richie Klebitz. And he comes in, and he says, "Hey, Coach, let me try that." And he looked at Chris DeSimone for about 5 minutes, and he says, "Let me try that." And I said, "No way. There's no way I'm going to explain to Mr. Klebitz that you got hurt in the gym high jumping." No, he takes off, and he runs at the bar. 2 feet away, jumps, clears the bar by about 3 inches. And I'm going, that's a 6-foot jump. Well, it took some long, tall convincing to get him to come out for track. And at first, I was reluctant because he was a wild kid. He had a lot of energy, a lot of troublemaking. But I said, I think I can save this kid. So I talked him into coming out. Before you know it, he sets 3 school records. And if it wasn't for his own teammate in the state group meet, winning the state group meet at 6'3.5", that he lost his record in a high jump. And he had been a teammate beating him several times. But there's many, many thrilling moments like that I can remember about Craig Zagorski. He is the one athlete in 1975 that won the Iron Area Conference. 6 meets in a row. He jumps the last jump, second to last, or last jump, to beat the opponent and win the meet. I remember distinctly at Randolph, we had beaten Randolph the year before by 1 point, So their coach is ready to win this. He got it on paper, they're going to win. He knew I had Stensgaard, a 20-foot jumper. He's in first and third place. There comes Craig, 21 feet something, and wins the meet on the last jump. He was a clutch athlete. So was Scott Sheehy. I have never had any more thrills than I did with Scott Sheehy, because Scott could run anywhere. 100. We didn't put him in 100, but he could run 100. He ran the quarter in 51 flat, better than our quarter miler in a relay. He ran the 800 meters in 156. Not once, but several times. And had the record in the conference 800. And if it wasn't for a sensational runner from Millburn, that he ever lost, because this guy was the best. So anyway, he was an excellent runner. He also could run the mile. He ran the mile in 4:30. We could put him anywhere. And my last thing I can say is that we were at the Dover High School seating meeting for the counties. And you know what they were discussing the entire time? Where were we going to run Scott Sheehy and Bob Malatesta? Where were we going to run them? So we raised our hand when we're seating for the 800 meters. We raised our hand and say, we're seating 3 guys in the 800 meters. And the coaching staff from the other schools go, what? We had first, second, and third seed in the 800 meters. Scott first, Malatesta second, Janice Saunders, I think it was third. But we were trying to load that event and keep both or 3 of our athletes away from the mile. And all the schools that weren't in contention to win the whole meet were fighting for the mile. So there's no sense in putting my miler in there, or either one of them. So we wound up winning that meet. And Scott Sheehy took first, record time, and Malatesta was it, or who was it? Anyway, took third. Bob Malatesta took third. Excellent. He was a clutch performer, run wherever we wanted him to run, whatever we wanted him to run. He was the reason we won. That's about it. These are 2 fine athletes. I'm very, very proud of them, and my experience with them will last me forever. Thank you.
We have a special award today. The Packin family had contacted Sue during the course of last year about providing a scholarship for a senior at Parsippany Hills. And in sitting down with Mr. Ordway and just a few of the teachers who are still around who knew Mr. Packin, we sort of set up criteria, one of them being academic, the second one being an athlete, if you remember Bernie, and the third one being involvement in school and activities and so forth. The recipient of that award is Michaela Dredden. Michaela, can you come up, please? Michaela is a senior at Parsippany Hills. She's a member of the National Honor Society. She is a 4-year officer in Student Council, was a representative to Girls State last year, and is captain of our volleyball and girls basketball team, and was an all-conference selection last year in both of those. Thank you, Michaela. One of the things that we wanted to do with the Hall of Fame was also recognize former Parsippany Hills graduates who have achieved in their chosen field. And our next recipient is one of those people. Our recipient is Tim Baxter from the class of 1979, and he's a graduate of Roger Williams University. And the grandchildren are excited that he's winning these awards. Okay. Oh, actually, those weren't his grandchildren. Okay. He had a business career with AT&T and Lucent Technologies, Sony, and Samsung. He has 30 years in sales and marketing experience in consumer electronics industry. He's a member of the board of Junior Achievers USA, member of the board of directors, Consumer Electronics Association, member of the Board of Trustees of Roger Williams University, and he's the President and Chief Operating Officer of Samsung Electronics America. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tim Baxter.
Good job. Look at this.
Well, thank you. This is pretty humbling for me, and you know, I'm not used to speaking without a PowerPoint or a teleprompter or some other mechanism there for that. But I want to thank John and Sue. I'm not sure why I received this award. I was thinking about it a lot over the last few months, and thinking back, it was nearly 40 years ago when I first walked into this cafeteria, this school. It's not as big as I remember it was back then, but you know, I was a kid coming out of St. Christopher's, so it was, you know, you went to school with first graders to eighth graders, so this was a bit more intimidating for me, but I'd say it was foundation setting time because, you know, I didn't stand out here in Parsippany Hills. There was no Ivy League schools coming to look for me for scholarships. I was not the captain on the gridiron. I wasn't dating the cheerleaders. I was just one of the guys. But I did learn to connect with people and connect with people from a lot of different groups, whether it was folks from the football team, guys like Jamie, who we grew up together, and thank you for those nice words there, sir. Met a lot of folks in the stagecraft days, and also met and was able to build relationships with a number of the folks who would hang out right outside these doors. It was actually, some of you remember, it was actually a smoking lounge. I actually had a smoking lounge on campus. How things have changed. But I did learn something about that, and I also started to get introduced to the business world working at this little Mexican restaurant up on Parsippany Road, Fiesta Hut. First as a, you know, washing dishes, and next thing I know, I'm managing the restaurant. So I got a taste of that. But it really wasn't until college where I'd say the scholastic light switch of effort equals output actually started to kick in for me. But 30 years in this industry that I've been in, I've seen a lot of change and been part of a lot of change, and a lot of which we've all felt and seen. If you remember, there used to be these things called VCR tapes, you know. Well, that industry changed to these shiny discs. Now there's no discs. It's all going through Netflix. You know, I've been able to see and experience things like that. Or when we used to have a 400-pound television that was taking up half your room. Now it's something light and thin that you hang up like a picture frame. Right? Or we used to communicate through phones or through letters in the mail, right? Now it's instant, social, always on. And so I experienced a lot of that. Maybe all of that hasn't been good, but for me it's been something that I've experienced, and it helped me learn and embrace change in pretty compelling ways. So, you know, to come back here to the university, to the school, to the Hills, nearly 40 years later, but I feel like I have never left. And for me, you know, living in Parsippany my whole life, or virtually my whole life, still living in Parsippany. Actually, we were able to walk from, I live about 100 yards behind the JV baseball field, and having seen and met my best friend, my wife, Brenda, a 1981 Hills graduate. She knew me not at all in high school. I did not exist. So fortunately, we met after college, but she's been my biggest supporter and truly my best friend. I love you, thank you. And I've been fortunate too, because 3 of my kids attended here at the Hills. 2 have graduated from college and are in their career. I have my third, Chrissy, who I was really surprised and proud to receive this award from, who's a senior here. And with a family of ours, there's about 50 Baxters and Wrights that have grown up here, live here, are in the surrounding towns. And I was trying to count up, but I think probably 20 of them attended Parsippany Hill. So the roots are deep here, and it's a big part of our life and the foundation we have created here. So I'm just humbly proud, along with the other recipients, and congratulations to all of them to be able to accept this award. And thank you very much. Go Vikes.
Our next recipient is also a graduate from 1979. It's Kathy Smith. Kathy attended the University of Maryland and graduated the University of North Carolina, where she was a swimmer there also. Kathy, was there a swimming team at the Hills when you were here? No, okay. Okay, so her high school accomplishment, if your school doesn't have a swim team, you're allowed to enter some of the bigger meets as basically a representative of the school. So even though we didn't have a swim team at the Hills, she entered the conference meet, the county meets, and state meets, where she basically received a lot of awards. In 1979, she was first place in the 50 and 100 freestyle at the state meet. She was a high school All-American in 50, 100, 200 freestyle. 1975 to 77, she was Morris County High School swim champion and record setter in the 50 and the 100 free. 1978-79, Iron Hills 200 and 500-yard free champion and record holder. 1976-79, daily record all area. 77-79, athlete of the year. 1978, Herald News all-around high school athlete of the year. 1980, Morris County Female Collegiate Athlete of the Year. In college, she qualified for the NCAAs twice. She's a member of an All-American relay team at the University of North Carolina that still holds a school record. At this point, I'd like to introduce Kathy Smith.
To the Parsippany Troy Hills Board of Education, the PHHS administrative team, the Viking Athletic Department, Sue Bonnet, John Pico, my fellow inductees, and to my family and friends that are with me here today, and to those who are not, I say thank you. I do stand before you with a full and grateful heart. Thank you for keeping the rich history and traditions alive within these walls. And thank you for your recognition of people that work hard, going about their daily business, serving others, all while modeling integrity, determination, perseverance, commitment, loyalty, and the one I consider to be the most important, humility. Those 6 attributes are what got me here to this place today. And although I wasn't alone in my journey, and I'm still not, my parents have been with me every step of the way, modeling and teaching those 6 character traits. They sacrificed their time and their finances for me to reach my goals. They rearranged schedules. They rescheduled family vacations. They didn't take vacations. They traveled with me to various places around the country, all at their own expense for me. And I thank you for that. My siblings, they, all athletic in their own right, wore the blue, black, and white proudly and represented this great school with class and honor. It was them I aspired to be like. Gifted in so many different ways, they walked the path and led me on the path that they themselves traveled. Again, those 6 key attributes are what got me to this place. Talent can only get you so far. I loved everything about this place. From the state-of-the-art media center to the daunting performing arts area, to finally getting to paint those rocks with my class numerals. to having a teacher at every single bend in the hallway asking for a pass. From arena scheduling to 15 segments a day to sophomore PE with Peg. And of course, as Timmy mentioned, the smoking lounge, which I grew up thinking was an actual lounge with couches and chairs and TVs. Imagine my disappointment when I got here my freshman year and saw it was a picnic bench outside. And although the journey didn't start here, it certainly didn't end here either, molding and melding me into the student athlete I became. And to the athletes that are here with us today, continue to pave the way for the younger athletes that follow you. I tell my athletes every single day, find the you in you and be a hero in your own story. Always remember where you came from and never forget those that have gone before you. Thank you once again for this tremendous honor. It's one that I'll have forever.
Our next recipient is Eric Sylvan, MD, MS, class of 1995. Eric is a graduate of Brandeis University. He's also a graduate of the Honifen School of Medicine at Drexel University. He's inducted in Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Society at Parsippany Hills. He was a baseball shortstop and I think also a soccer player for Mr. Klebitz. 1995, he was a second team All-State selection, first team All Group 3, first team All Area, All County, All Conference. He held school records with 47 hits and a .456 batting average. 1994, he was a first team All Conference and All County in soccer. I guess I answered my own question. At this time, I'd like to introduce Eric Silva.
Shortly after the late, great Hall of Famer Walter Payton retired from the NFL, I don't know if you remember, but he tried his hand at automobile racing. He won a race, and a reporter asked him how taking home the checkered flag compared to scoring a touchdown. I mean, to paraphrase Sweetness, Payton basically looked at him and laughed, and he said, "What comparison?" Now, this isn't exactly Canton, Ohio, and I'm not comparing myself to a professional Hall of Fame athlete, but that was something that stuck with me all these years because I related to what he had said. Since graduating from the Hills, I've gone on to pursue a career in medicine that's filled with myriads of excitement, but one can never recreate some of the positive emotions I experienced here at PHHS. I'll never forget what it was like to score my first varsity goal or hitting a big home run in a tight game or fielding the last ground ball and touching second base to win the state championship in baseball my senior year. These are emotions and sentiments that cannot be duplicated. For that, I'm forever grateful to Parsippany Hills High School and all the people that are here today. Often much comparison is made between sports and medicine. Studies have even been published citing that athletes often make the best doctors. Some have even claimed that being successful in athletics is more predictive of being a great resident than grades and interview scores. These papers cite the obvious. Sports and surgery are both about teamwork, dedication, leadership, etc. And I do believe this all to be true. But what these studies don't account for are the intangibles, the relationships that are fostered through sports. I also believe that many life lessons can be learned on the field years before they are encountered in the work field. And the people that teach these lessons are the coaches. Let me tell one story that my father and my brothers never let me forget. I had missed the penalty shot in soccer in the county tournament quarterfinals that would have sent us on to the next round. We wound up losing that game, and I took it pretty hard. Coach Belletti and Klebitz could see this and basically pulled me aside the next day of practice and explained to me that they had made a decision, and I was their guy, and that some days you eat the bear, and some days the bear eats you. Needless to say, it was a lesson learned and something I will always remember. I also remember Coach Anthony Pico's regimented workouts. Same thing every day. That's a common saying that we have in surgery. But it was he who taught me the importance of repetition and having a routine. But I probably wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Coach Kevin Murray. I see this coming. It was he who was the first one to teach me that I coasted in life on natural talent up until this point, and if I wanted to go to the next level, I would have to work for it. He taught and stressed the details. Once I realized what he was talking about, baseball took on a whole new meaning for me. This eventually translated into better work habits and ultimately into the operating room. He was filled with countless idioms that continue to resonate with me, like don't accept mediocrity. And when you hit the wall of adversity, you have to climb over it. I can't tell you how many times I thought about that when in medical school. Believe me, there are countless others. He also introduced me to the words sassafras and squingeal. I guess since he was an English teacher, I had to look those up. But the dedication and passion I had for the team that I learned on the field has allowed me to become a cardiothoracic surgeon. This is a point that I truly believe and will always remember. My family. My family's here, and I cannot thank them enough. Their love and support has allowed me to follow my dreams. They were always at all my games, and I'll somehow find a way to be at my son's Lucas's games. Last but not least is my rock, my wife Allison. We met in college. She's been with me on this journey. Without her, there's no way I'd be here or a doctor today. She keeps me somewhat sane and has provided me with the infinite love and support. She's an amazing partner and mother. She spent way too many nights alone while I was on call, but somehow she remains the strongest person I know and the most amazing person in the world and an incredible mother. And Lukey and I love you. And thank you to Sue Bonnet and John Pico for organizing this. It's been great to see so many influential people in my life here today. Thank you.
I'd like Kevin Murray, if you can come up and say a few words, please.
I do feel at home here, I think in this exact spot, because of the 25 years I was here. I think I stood here on cafeteria duty, 24 of them. I'll try not to elongate like Nick did, because I'm not that good a speaker, but there's a few things I would like to really highlight concerning Eric. First of all, people would always ask me as a coach, what's the greatest thing that can happen with players? And I've been fortunate. I've been involved in coaching 3 or 4 gentlemen that have gone on to a professional career. Joe Warslack out of Parsippany Hills, Rick Sofield, who's a third base coach currently with the Pirates, Josh Urey, who played professionally. And people would say, is that the ultimate? And the answer is no. No. Success is what the ultimate is in a career. And Eric Sylvan and the doctor he's become and the professional he's become and how renowned he is as a heart specialist, that's the big leagues, Eric. That is at the top of my list. A few other things I would highlight. His family. What a great, great, great family. And when you talk about Michelle and Ben and the 3 boys they raised, all to success. Jared, a cop in Morristown, very successful. Darren is in the culinary arts in Massachusetts. And what they've done, and all 3 of the Sylvan boys were vastly different in personality, which is what you want in your children. And to develop and allow them to grow as individuals is a credit to them. We've had some bumps along the way. I can remember when Eric was a sophomore and he had a little discipline problem, one of the few in his career. And he missed a game. I sat him a game. And I don't think his father was very happy about that, if I recall. And I think meeting with Ben and Michelle on that, I think my comment to him was, please judge me after 4 years, not after 2. And they became our most ardent supporters in baseball. A credit to Eric is, if you look around the room today, all 3 of his soccer coaches, Anthony Pico, Renato Belletti, Rich Klebitz, are here to honor him, among others. And all 3 of his baseball coaches, Anthony Pico, Jeff Cole, and myself, are here to honor him. What a tremendous, tremendous career he has and will continue to have. He has grown, and we have a saying every year, and I'm going to conclude with this. When we had our preseason meeting with parents, we would always say it was our job as coaches to develop the player into a Viking baseball player. And then once they accomplished that, they became a member of the Viking family. Eric is a proud member of that family and has always cherished it. Congratulations, Eric.
Our next individual recipient is Steve Smithers from the class of 1999. Steve is a Phi Beta Kappa graduate of Princeton University. He was a football player. He was also, on a minor level, a track athlete, throwing the javelin. Once in a while we can get him to run, but not very often. Those of you who've been around Parsippany Hills for a long time, from like 1976 to 1998, Parsippany Hills had maybe 3 winning seasons in football. We were a football wasteland at best. In 1999, that changed. Okay, that changed with Coach Phil Longo and the team Smithers. Steve Smithers was on, Josh Zagorski, and a whole crew there. That team ended up, I think, being 10-1, being conference champs, and was the first Parsippany Hills football team to qualify for the state tournament and win a state game. If you look at Parsippany Hills now, Parsippany Hills is one of the better programs in Morris County and actually has made it to the finals 5 times and won a championship. That was the beginnings, okay? Steve in 1998 was a second-team All-State as a quarterback or utility player. He was also a linebacker for us, if I remember correctly. In 1998, he was also first-team All-Area, first-team All-County. He held career records of over 4,000 yards passing and 39 touchdown passes, and he was captain on that team. At this point, I'd like to introduce Steve Smithers.
Thank you very much. This picture here is really special. I've actually seen quite a bit of it lately. One of my co-workers has kids that are at the Hills here, and a couple weeks ago he caught wind of this, and he was nice enough to send this picture around with some accolades to all my co-workers. So they've been busting my chops about it since, and I actually turned around the other day, and one of my co-workers had this up on their computer screen, and I was laughing with him, and I'm like, man, that is just some terrible haircut there. And he turns and looks at me with this like puzzled face. He's like, dude, you realize you still have the same exact haircut, don't you? So I noticed in the program here that there were some equally terrible ones, but I guess I'm just the only one who held on to theirs. So anyway, I just want to say thank you to Ms. Bonnet and Mr. Pico for putting this together. It is a great day. I first found out that I was being inducted a few months ago. I came home from work, and my wife started asking me questions about my high school football career and stats and everything, and immediately red flag went up. As much as I like to talk about it and relive the glory days, she's shown about zero interest in the topic in the 10 years or so we've been together. So I knew something was up. She tried to keep this charade going for a while that there wasn't, but eventually spilled the beans and told me that I was going to be inducted. And at first I was surprised. I didn't know that there was a Hall of Fame. And certainly, had I known, I don't think I would have thought of myself as somebody that would have been up for it. So I was feeling pretty good about it, and then some time set in, and I started to think about it, and I started to feel a little uncomfortable, as I imagined then, and I've learned today, is that most of the people that are up for it, they were not only the best at what they did while they were here, but certainly for a number of years preceding that, and probably for a number of years afterwards as well. And truth is, I wasn't even the best player on my team. not by a pretty wide margin. So I was like, okay, that could be a little awkward. But then I thought, oh, you know what? I did set a bunch of records while I was here, and maybe it's that. But that sense of calm didn't last too long because I realized that every one of them I think has been broken since. So didn't really stand the test of time there. So I said, all right, maybe it's because I went on to play college football. Maybe that's why. And if any of you are familiar with my college football career, not many people are. That's because it basically amounted me to only stepping on the field if there were less than 2 minutes left and we were up by at least 30 points. And even then, I think my coaches thought I could single-handedly find some way to lose the game. So it definitely wasn't that. But I ultimately came to the conclusion, you know what? I'm 35 years old. Trophies and accolades, they're hard to come by, so I'll take it. And I'm just going to say thank you very much. On a serious note, I haven't been back here in quite some time. It's really nice to be back. I know that sounds cliche, but being in this cafeteria, walking around these hallways, it brings back a lot of great memories, certainly of experiences I had while I was here, but I think more importantly of the relationships I built when I was here with the teachers, coaches, friends. That support network, along with with my family, certainly was a very strong support network for me at a time in my life where I very much needed it. So thank you very much.
One of the things in putting the Hall of Fame together is we also wanted to acknowledge some of the teams that achieved, and basically to be accepted for this nomination. It's a pretty stringent process, and sometimes, like as we get older, our memories of things change, and what we think was isn't, and sometimes things surprise you. So right now we only have one team up to today that was inducted, which was our girls softball team, who was at that time ranked #1 in the state of New Jersey. The second team going in is the 1987 boys tennis team. And at least one of those members I had in my class, and he continuously would remind me on how good of a tennis player he was and how good the team was, but I pretty much ignored it. But as we looked up on the banners that are in the gym, and then we realized that most of this team was the same team for 4 years. It's sort of an astounding record. The 1987 team was 20-4. They were ranked 7th in the state and 1st in Morris County. When you look at the 4 years, okay, 1984, 1985, 1987, they were a state section champ. 1986 and 1987, they were the Morris County champs. All 4 years, they were conference champs. Okay, so they were a dominant group of athletes. The coach of that team was Mr. Chuck Pollock, who we didn't list on here, but was an integral part of that team. And he's an inductee already into our Hall of Fame. So at this point, I would like to call Chuck up and to introduce his team members and talk a little bit more about his team. Chuck Pollock.
As John just said, that the '84 team was the start of a new trend in our school. The '83 team was 12-6. Six of the 7 returning varsity members were coming back. So that meant when this team came in '84, 3 freshmen played first, second, and third singles. And they happen to be here today. So Adam, Owen, Brian, want to come up? Okay. The 3 singles players played 4 years of singles. That's why this record was fantastic. Along with this team, we also had a 4th player who was fantastic, one of the best doubles players we ever had, and that was Glenn Polanski. And lucky for us, he's here today also. Glenn? The other three starters, one is living out in Colorado, I believe, and the other two are doctors now out in California, so they couldn't be here. With this team, as you can read here, the record, during conference matches, we lost one conference match in a 4-year span. We also, we were the first team, I guess the first public school team to win the county tennis tournament. And we did it 2 years in a row. Now, this team, I mean, records are nice, but there's something more important about this team. When they graduated in '87, the doubles team, who are now doctors, were valedictorian and salutatorian. These three singles players here graduated 5th, 9th, and 13th, I believe, in the senior class. So, which wasn't too shabby at all. But more importantly, that these, I guess all 7 players were fantastic people, and that you have to thank their parents for. Thank you for honoring us.
I just want to say one thing. Except for maybe Owen, Adam, Glenn, and myself, we were John McEnroe, Ely Nastasi, Jimmy Connor wannabes. So we certainly were not the most calm demeanored tennis players on the court. We broke a lot of rackets, and we mentioned a few expletives during our time. But and by the way, we always behind the scenes called you Chuck. You were Coach Pollock to your face, but we always called you Chuck. But your calm demeanor throughout all that time are attributes of leadership that I think we all probably carry to this day. So thank you very much for what you've done for us. Thanks.
I would like to again thank all the members and team members who are elected into the Hall of Fame today, and if we can have another round of applause for them. The plaques for the nominees are already hanging up in the hallway. They went up during the week, so and in my class, I don't know, I bring my freshman finance class, we went down there en masse to look at them, and just to give them a sense of history. At this point, our ceremony is concluded. You're welcome to stay. If nominees can go out on the patio so we can get some photos, we'd appreciate it. And with your families also, we'd like to do that. And thank you all very much for coming. Thank you.